Hello and welcome to your math lesson for today. Today we are going to be solving inequalities just like we have for the last week and a half, and we're going to have variables on both sides of that inequality sign. So you're going to be able to show your work to be able to solve inequalities that have variables on both sides. All right, so here we go. It looks pretty similar to what the problems in the past have looked like. We're going to put a line straight down that inequality symbol. And if you recall, when we were solving equal signs, equations, my first thought was always to try to get my letters together first. Okay, letters together first. So, and we usually move the smallest letter. Move smallest letter. Okay, so I've got a 4M and I've got a 2M. So the first thing I'm going to do to move this is I'm going to move the 2M, and I'm going to subtract 2M from both sides. So we've got 4M minus 2M is 2M. And because all we did was add or subtract, I'm going to keep that exact same symbol. And now 2M minus 2M, those cancel out, and we have a 6. So now we're going to have to get this 2M all by itself. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And when we do that, we have 2M is less than, because all we did was add, and 6 plus 3 is 9. Okay, now that says 2 times m, so the opposite of times is divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So m is less than, and you can leave it as 9 over 2, or some of you are going to grab a calculator and find out that that decimal value is 4.5. Okay, now for graphing purposes, this has kind of been the same all along. We put our 0 and our 4.5. So we look at that symbol. There's no line underneath it. So we know we're going to have an open circle here at 4.5, and we're going to read it from the letter. Any number less than 4.5, so less than, and we go to the left. All right, second problem kind of looks the same. We've got t's, they're on opposite sides. So I'm going to just draw a line straight down. I'm going to move the smallest letter first. So what's smaller, a 5t or a negative 2t? So because of the negative 2t, I'm going to add 2t to both sides. So 5t plus 2t is 7t. And we just added, so I'm going to leave that symbol the same. A negative 2t plus 2t, that cancels out. And now we have a negative 6. Okay, so now we need to move this 1. Because that says a plus 1, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. So 7t is less than negative 6 minus 1. Use your calculator so you get this math right. And we end up with a negative 7. Now, how do we move that 7 away from the t? We're going to divide both sides by 7, and I'm dividing by a positive number, so I am not going to do any flipping. Negative 7 divided by a positive 7 is a negative 1. Now, on my number line, I have a negative 1 and a 0. Open or close circle. Again, just like that last problem, we do not have a line underneath it. So we're just going to have an open circle here at negative 1. And that says any number is less than negative 1. The letter's first, so it's in a good position for me to just graph. And we go to the left. All right, next problem here. Ooh, this one's got a double distributive going on here. So I have to distribute on both sides. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is distribute. So we're going to take 5 times 2 is 10. And 5 times a negative r is going to be a negative 5r. And all I'm doing is distributing. I'm not doing anything on any side, so just keep the same exact symbol. 3 times r is 3r, and 3 times a negative 2 is a negative 6. Okay, from here, you guys can do 2 different ways. It doesn't matter which way you do this. Some of you are going to look at that and say negative 5 is smaller than 3. So you're going to add 5r to the other side. Okay, so when we add this, we've got 10, and a negative 5 plus 5 cancels out. I just added or subtracted, so keep that symbol the same. 3 plus 5 is 8r, and we still have our negative 6. So now how do we move that 6 to the other side? We're going to add 6, so we get 10 plus 6 is 16, and 8r, so that says 8 times r, so the opposite of times is divide. So I have 2 is greater than or equal to r. 16 divided by 8 is 2. Leave your symbol the same. And 8 divided by 8 is r. Now be careful for graphing purposes. We kind of like it better when that letter's first, so I'm just going to rewrite it so that this letter is first. And we see how this arrow is pointing. The point is towards the r. I'm going to make sure that I do that when I rewrite it. Okay, now I'm going to graph it. So I'm not going to graph it until I have that r first. Okay, so here's my number line here. And in this number line, I have a 0 and I have a 2. Less than or equal to, we have that equal to underneath. So we're going to have a closed circle here at 2. And then this says any number is less than. So I'm going to shade to the left. Okay, remember we always want to have that letter first so that it is easier to get this thing graphed. Okay, so any number less than, so we are going to shade to the left. All right, that's it. We're at the end of the assignment for today. And so those are the end of notes. So if you go ahead and look in Schoology, you're going to have an assignment that is going to say inequalities with variables on both sides.